Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler episode 61 on a show that Mike and I don't understand trilogies. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram.
I am Mike at Official Pagan on everything. And I really have to say, when you do the introductions, you sound so professional. I feel like I don't sound that good when I introduce a show.
Oh, posh. I think in a way that is a convoluted mock to the fact that back in the day, when the whole start when Mike and I first connected was through Snarkalic Radio on Live 365 Loud and Loaded, which I couldn't appear to get out successfully about 90% of the time.
I'm being serious though. I feel like, and maybe it's because of that. Like, so for me personally, like, I think one of my strengths that I bring to projects that I work on is that I'm good at editing. That comes from being terrible at editing and just having to force myself to do it over and over and over again until I got better than ever. I ultimately ended up being better than the other people that we work with just because I had to force myself to practice so much. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's because you just bumble over the call sign every time over and over again. Then now when you say it, like, you just hit it with such precision that I feel like I sound terrible next to that. Like, and I'm not just saying this for the squatties to boost our numbers, but go listen to a me episode and go listen to a Kelly episode. They're miles apart.
Yeah, I politely disagree, but thank you. So we're doing Prisoner Exchange. We did Suspiria last time on episode 60. It was really awesome. Like, as I mentioned, my favorite recommendation from Mike so far on this progress. And now we move into spoiler. So I made a prediction because as I went back and re-listened. So let me clarify. I truly enjoy this album, but as I kind of went back through this album again, I said, I wonder how this is going to work for Mike because there are elements. So it is the 1978 release, the 16th studio album by the Kinks. It's called Misfits. They have just kind of moved recently. They started off in kind of that archetypical British invasion kind of band sound. You Really Got Me. They were doing all of that, some very, very creative stuff. They got into much more conceptual stuff like Muswell Hillbillies and all of that. And then we they started to move to more traditional rock, starting with Sleepwalker, and started to have some commercial success with that. And it's almost a trilogy of Sleepwalker, Misfits, and Low Budget that kind of very fit. And you can maybe argue Give the People What You Want and some other things coming up as well. But these are ones where they kind of go a little more traditional rock, a little more commercial, still very varied. Ray Davies, I believe, is an outstanding songwriter, and Dave Davies is a fantastic guitarist. So Misfits is kind of the middle piece of their trilogy of this sound. I like it. I like it quite a bit. I'm highly interested, though, in your top line reactions, Mr. Blinsky.
Okay, so I need to start by saying I am not overly familiar with the Kinks. Not that I dislike them. I guess you would say, like, a casual fan of the Kinks. You take one of their greatest hits records, I pretty much know all the songs off of it, but, deeper studio stuff, I'm not as familiar with their stuff. I understand their place in rock music, though, particularly their contributions to, like, early hard rock and even sort of proto metal in a way, because they, more so than other bands, popularized guitar distortion by intentionally damaging the speaker cones of their amplifiers to get a more distorted sound. So I appreciate their contributions to it. I'm very familiar with all their big hits. When I initially looked at the track listing on this, though, I did not recognize a single song. So I didn't know any of the songs, was ready to jump into it. I was really caught off guard, though. This does not sound like what I expected it to sound like. I did enjoy it, though. So this is not the one that's going to break we've enjoyed each other's recommendations. I did like this album. The thing that threw me, though, is this just based on their big hits and the stuff I'm familiar with, this album had a really, to me, unexpected sound to it by being a more straightforward sort of rock commercial sort of record.
Yeah. It doesn't harken back to any early Kinks at all.
No, and it's the early stuff I assuming that I'm more familiar with.
it is a diverse set of topics and songs and tonality, to say the least, on Misfits, which kind of ironically is probably a good name for the album. So let's go ahead and get started off. We start off. Oh, well, before we start, because we wanted to start doing cover art as well. So the cover art on this one is a kind of surrealist combination of Ray Davies at the top and Dave Davies at the bottom. So for those of you not familiar with the Kinks, the core of the Kinks are the brothers Davies, Ray and Dave, who really don't get along all that well. The encouraging thing is they are actually looking at reforming to do a new album possibly in 2019 with Ray, Dave, and Mick Avery, who was their original drummer, who, by the way, clocked Dave Davies with a cymbal stand at the end of a concert one time. So working out issues. It's a kind of this blending of the two faces. So it's a almost avatar-like drawing of Ray at the top and Dave at the bottom, and then blending them in the middle. So this is not raise your fist and yell level of dislike for an album cover. But although the Kinks have never been super strong on album covers, this to me is it's interesting, but didn't wow me. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the cover art.
I thought it was interesting. And again, so when I went on Apple Music and scrolled through, like you said, their album covers aren't necessarily, that's I feel like not what the Kinks are known for. I don't want to say they're bad. They're just either a band photo or a picture of a guitar or some sort of stylized logo. For the most part, they're not really intricate albums. These aren't like Alice Cooper records where, you're being drawn in by the artwork before you even hear a single note. So this one really stands out in that sense by having this sort of surrealist image on the front of it. So I'm a big Salvador Dali fan, and I think we covered this, again, mentioning Alice Cooper. I think we covered this a little bit with the Alice Cooper stuff. To me, this is obviously trying to echo that. It's not as good as that type of stuff, but I can understand where they were going with it, and I think it's an interesting image.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a Dali-esque portion to it, which adds a nice piece of interest to it. And of their album covers, probably one of their strongest, but it doesn't seem to be a priority for them.
No, yeah. Especially when you look at this on your phone on something like a Spotify or an Apple Music, and you're scrolling through the little tile album covers, this is the one that pops out instantly. So
Misfits starts off with the title track, Misfits, and kind of strikes the theme that beyond when they take kind of hard left turns, and we'll get to the first hard left turn next song, but this idea of basically almost the theme of this, it's not a concept album, but an overriding theme on this is maybe you're different, maybe you don't fit in, but wouldn't it be great if we kind of figured a way to get along? Is kind of, which is, not a bad message in today's time as well. And so Misfits starts off, it's almost a melancholy song as well, but it is really just kind of setting the stage for that. And in terms of Misfits are everywhere, it features a lot of the kind of traditional kind of Kink vocal sound to it as well. It is a kind of in the softer register, but a really kind of nice kind of intro leading you. It feels almost just like I'm opening the door to about what you're going to receive for the rest of the album, but I enjoy this song.
Yeah, I like this song right off the bat. I was like, this is not what I was expecting. Right from the very start. Again, because of the Kinks songs that I'm familiar with, their big hits, which are more guitar-driven rock. This had more of a polish to it, a little bit more of a softer edge than what I was expecting. So it kind of threw me there. You touched on something that I was going to get to that obviously starts with this song. There is clearly a theme that runs through this and that they touch on in multiple tracks of we're all kind of misfits and we need to get along. I was wondering if this was maybe a loose concept record or part of, you mentioned it almost being like a trilogy of albums. Is this part of a bigger concept that they were working on? Because, like I said, I'm more of a casual fan where I know the hits. So I wasn't sure, and there does seem to be recurring themes in this. I particularly like the line where he says, "Take a good look around, misfits are everywhere." I thought that was a good tattoo-worthy line to this track.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, there's a sincerity to the song, which is kind of, I think, one of Ray Davies' hallmarks. And so it's just a very, very strong way to start the album off.
It is, and we're both first song people, as we've discussed on this before. I think that this does a great job of setting the tone, even if the tone did throw me. I did ultimately end up really enjoying this record. It wasn't what I expected. Not that I expected to dislike it, it just wasn't what I expected from a Kinks record. My idea of what a Kinks record was going to sound like.
And if a young Mike Belinsky entered listening to this album with expectations, I highly doubt his thought was, I bet you the second song on this album will deal with allergies. And so there are two, I mean, there's some very quirky, kinky kind of songs on this album. Hay Fever, the second track, definitely fills the bill. It's a great song. It moves along, in my opinion, great, but it is basically a song about having hay fever and not being happy about it, but done in a rockin', fun kind of way. To a certain degree, this is a variant of the Under My Wheels storyline from Alice Cooper. And instead of his lady having issues, it's this individual. But I did, as I listened to it, said, yeah, this is in the Under My Wheels family, but done in a kind of British kink kind of way. Your thoughts?
I thought it was interesting listening to a song about allergies because in the magical internet world, you guys might be listening to this months after we recorded it. At the time we're recording this, it is summer. It is definitely in the throes of allergy season. Just today, my nephew, who has asthma, was telling me his lungs were bad today. It was interesting timing-wise listening to this song then. Musically, I really love the bass line on this. I feel like the bass and guitar are sort of reversed in the mix on this song, especially like listening to them on headphones. The bass is really high on top of the song where the guitar would normally be, whereas the guitar is not buried, but down a lot further in the mix where the bass would typically be. So I thought that was interesting, especially because it has such a good bass line to it.
Yeah, and that's a real interesting thing because you've got the Kinks and the Who emerging basically at this same point in time, and kind of interesting parallels and contrast between them that both bands featured like a very strong songwriter, Pete Townsend for the Who, Ray Davies for the Kinks, and that idea sometime that the bass, a little different for the Who, in that, there are not too many John Entwistles out there that could kind of do what he did, but they do kind of play with that too, that the bass assumes a kind of a greater prominence of it as well, which is actually a great lead into the next song, which is Live Life. It's a rocker. This becomes kind of now, Misfits was kind of melancholy and soft. Hay Fever was kind of a poppy, fun song. Now we get into Live Life. It kind of gets more into, it's still slightly, you could argue commercial, but it's definitely a rocker. In my opinion, definitely kind of a Who bass line kind of going on in there as well. Back to the Ray Davies, Pete Townsend contrast, great lyricists, both of them. You got in this song, out of work executives are killing themselves and the IRA is killing everybody else. So it's pretty cool stuff there. Calling back to a previous Prisoner Exchange, Tony O'Kay, where Tony O'Kay said, hell's going to a handbasket and we're all basically screwed. This is a little bit of hell's going to a handbasket, but we ought to find a way to make it better. So almost a response to Tony O at this point in time as well. But a kind of a strong, punchy song, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay, so this is where it's going to get dicey for me, where you had your issues with the Goblin album. So as it turns out, as I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry for this, there are multiple editions of this album that reorder the tracks.
Oh, no.
Yes. So in the version that I listened to, all the songs are on there, it looks like. But from the CD and digital versions, the tracks are in a different order than the original vinyl release. So Live Life was not the third song when I listened to it.
Oh.
It was the seventh song on the version that I listened to.
Oh, can you talk about it?
Yeah, no.
I think you're probably accurate. I should probably. Why don't you talk a little bit about Live Life, and I'm going to bring up source of all knowledge Wikipedia here and get our.
I'm on the Wikipedia now, and it has different track listings.
Okay, so well, talk about Live Life, and I'll get on the program.
Luckily, this won't be a problem because I have notes for all the songs. I just have to line them up. That's all. So let's see. Let's jump down to number 7. So what struck me about this song, and especially at the point in the album it came on that I listened to, so it kind of has that like a new wave feel to the music, but definitely straightforward punk influenced lyrics, like a little bit of that political edge to it. It definitely reminds me of like early punk, but I like that. New wave to me was sort of like punk with the edges dulled down a little bit. So this was kind of like a cool mixture of the two. You get that new wave sound to the music, but that punk bite to the lyrics still.
Okay, so I've narrowed down, going again to Wikipedia, the source of all truth. I, as a good American, am going off the American release of the album, which indeed does have Live Life as the third track. However, Mike, being the commie bastard that he is, on with the British release, which had Black Messiah, I believe, as the third song.
Correct. As soon as you started talking about it, I was like, this is not the song that I have notes for.
Well, so Mike, America. We're going to go with America. So you may need to dance a little bit here.
That's okay. Like I said, I have notes, so I'm good.
I am crazy looking forward to talking about Black Messiah, but we're gonna have to wait because America List has Rock and Roll Fantasy as the fourth song. How's that work for you?
Yes. Yeah.
So Rock and Roll Fantasy, more of a ballad, almost Beatlesque. Starts out kind of soft in the process, but it starts to build and build and build and really gets kind of stronger and harder towards the end of this album. This is a very diverse, kind of quirky album. I like this song, but there's many, many other songs on this album that I like a lot better than Rock and Roll Fantasy. Again,
when I scrolled through the track listing, there was nothing that jumped out at me. This song is the only one that I had heard. And almost shortly after it started, I recognized the song. What I like about this song is there is the first appearance of more distorted guitars, which is what I was expecting. That's one of the things that the Kinks are sort of known for in their contribution to rock music as a whole. You get that more distorted guitar sound here and there that I expected. So I really like that. And also, and this might throw you a little bit, but I'm going to make a comparison to a band that I don't think I've ever made a comparison to before. But there are some Beach Boys-esque harmonies near the end of this song.
Shocker. Don't know how to process that, but yeah. Yeah, definitely towards the end when we get this kind of the I absolutely see that. Yeah, it's a very well constructed song, well executed and all that. It's just for me, and we've established in previous shows, I like the stupid, I like the fun and kind of clever. And this is straightforward. It's a good song. It's a very, very good song, but and I can definitely see that kind of Beach Boy-esque action at the middle. And that's kind of the cool thing about this album is there are shifts even within the songs that take you to different places. So I'm bouncing back and forth between the UK and the US. Again, Mike siding with non-American countries, just saying. But the good news is we'll stay, I believe, consistent here that the final track on the first side for vinyl, which is the way God intended us to listen to music, is In a Foreign Land. At the very beginning, and I'm actually moderately, I guess I shouldn't say shocked. We're going to hear Beach Boy references from you consistently on albums. But I actually anticipated the first reference is going to come on this song because it's almost a Sloop John B guitar action at the beginning of In a Foreign Land. It's a very poppy song. It's a fantastic chorus. And it's basically this idea of, I've had it. I'm going to a foreign land. I'm going to sit on the beach. I'm going to have a good time. And it is an uplifting, fun, fantastic song for me. One of my favorites on this album.
I really enjoyed this song too. My first note is more Beach Boys. That's the first note that I have. You already delved into it, but more Beach Boys. I really like the drums on this song. The drums kind of gave it like a little bit of a driving rock element to it. It's a fun song, like you said. So I have a couple weird. So it's not just this track. A couple times on this album, I have some weird questions that popped up for you, sir. So if you were going to run away to a foreign land, where would you go? And so for anyone who doesn't know, Kelly is I think it'd be fair to say, a well-traveled.
So, absent current volcano issues, Hawaii has a lot of appeal to me. How about you?
So I do my fair share of traveling as well. I really, really enjoyed Central America, where we spent some time last year. I think I'd like to get back out there. It seems like a nice enough place to run away to. Other than their plumbing issues, I would have to stick to like their city areas to avoid some of the plumbing problems that they have there. But Central America was just a beautiful place, incredible food. I would go back there in a second. I love the weather there. It was very, temperate there. It wasn't even going in the middle of summer because it's a rainforest area. It wasn't too humid because when it would start getting hot, it would rain for 10 minutes and cool down. And so I would probably spend some more time there.
Yeah, and so it is the existential crisis of plumbing versus lava.
Yeah. Oh well, they also have the lava issues there. We went to a few different volcanoes. For anyone who hasn't watched this, it's so out of character for me, but I'm about to plug something that we did, Kelly. Kelly and I made a little documentary called Our Summer Vacation. And for anyone who hasn't watched it, there is a shot of a volcano there in the Central America section. We actually went to a few different volcanoes, though. The one volcano, particularly that we spent a lot of time around, was we stayed in about 5 different hotels or 5 different areas in Central America. The one hotel was at the base of an active volcano, in a village that was called La Fortuna, the Fortunate. It wasn't always called that, but there used to be 3 villages at the base of the volcano. So the one that's still there is the Fortunate.
And there's the unfortunate one and the unfortunate 2.
Yeah.
Other cities. Duly noted. So the good news and again, I apologize for Mike's non-nationalistic point of view, but it appears that all that basically happened is Live Life and Black Messiah were flipped, and everything else is good. So
okay.
We should be set. So we moved to side 2. So this is an album that, we got some insight onto allergies with Hay Fever. Super fun song. I tried to explain this to my daughter today, and there was this very blank stare of not understanding on how awesome this next song is. But it's called Permanent Waves, and this is a fantastic song, probably my second favorite song on the album. We're about to come to number 1. It rolls along. It's super cool. It's basically the storyline is the guy's not feeling well. He goes to see his doctor. And the doctor's solution is you need to get a permanent. You need to get some permanent waves. You need to get your hair done. The doctor's advice is your body functions, but your hair's a disgrace. You shouldn't let it hang all over your face. Change your image or you'll look out of place. And so it's this idea of if I get these permanent waves, I'm going to be cool. I'll be laughing and I'm going to get the ladies. And it is such a joyful song and such a really, really fun song and so quintessential Kinks. This song always makes me smile. It's a fun song, remarkably lightweight. I'll give you that, but fun. Your thoughts on Permanent Waves?
Fun song. I really like the synth on this song. So going back to our Suspiria review that we had done in the episode prior to this, I am a synth player. I pay a lot of attention to synth parts and songs. There's some nice overdrive on the synth, which again, going back to bands like Goblin and stuff like that, who were the first ones, or among the first ones to do that sort of thing. I like that they carried it over here. It's a fun song. Brings up another question for me, Kelly. Have you ever had any sort of crazy hairstyles or anything like that?
So genetically, what kind of happened here is that my father always had kind of this wavy hair, and that kind of made its way to me. So I've never... What I have is what I got, and it's kind of this kind of curly kind of thing, and so I've never had any action done to my hair beyond cutting it.
I have done all kinds of crazy, stupid shit to my hair. So,
have you ever sported a mohawk?
Many times. Yeah, that was a staple when I was a kid. Then it was a shaved head for a while. Then I had very long hair, like down past my waist long hair. I've also gone through different periods where I would shave parts of my head, like maybe shave half of it and have the other side long. I've had a number of different hair colors. So yeah, I've done some crazy stuff.
How very Joe Strummer, Peter Gabriel of you. Yeah, no, I just kind of let it go. And at some point, gosh, I wish we will not be able to include this in the blog posting, but I will do some searching. If you comb out the curly locks of Kelly's hair, you can get almost a Bernie from Room 222 look, which will mean nothing to anyone listening to this podcast. But I can get, if the hair gets poofy, it can get really crazy from there. I have actually a football pic from high school with the hair kind of in that poofy mode, which if I can find, I'll share. But
if you're willing to share that, I can share. So because of all of the crazy shit that I've done to my hair now as an old man is very different. It's a lot straighter. It's thinner than it used to be. I used to have very thick, very tight curls in my hair. And that's why I started doing all the crazy shit to my hair, because I just couldn't do anything else with it. So I had to go like extreme. Like you couldn't just comb it a different way or maybe cut it a different way because it was such tight, thick curls. There are pictures of me as a young kid before I had the ability to start doing stupid shit with my hair. And I have tight blonde ringlets of hair. So if you're willing to share one of your pictures, I'm sure I can dig up one of those pictures to share as well.
I'm going to have to do some digging, but we'll find it eventually. And we'll get it on maybe a future prisoner exchange, but we'll get kind of unfortunate hair disasters. So your hair is naturally not straight?
No. It's a lot straighter and thinner now because of everything I've done to it over the years. But it used to be very thick and very tight packed curls. My hair is also very light, which surprises people. I was blonde up until I was like a teenager, and then it started to darken a little bit. I use hair gel. I put the hair gel in when my hair is wet, and it stays dark the rest of the day. It makes it look like I have brown hair. I actually have like a very, very light brown hair. Like almost like a dirty blonde is my natural color. So if you ever saw me with like dry hair with nothing in it, I look like a different person. And now that I'm old, a lot of it's turning gray. So it's actually starting to look lighter again. So it's almost like I'm going back to blonde until you get up close and you just realize it's a lot of gray hair.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Again, genetically blessed that I believe I'll track with Dad, and that'll be curly, and that'll be going gray a little later. We'll see. We'll see how it all rolls. But it's a dirty blonde kind of action. All right. Now we get to the magic of this album. For Mike, track 3, Tommy Mike. For Kelly, track 2 on side 2, Black Messiah. Oh my goodness. I love this. This is my favorite song on this album. This is a song I want to sing. I want to sing as I'm walking into work, but it strikes me.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't. Because it strikes me that if I walk into work going, there's a black Messiah that's going to set the world on fire, that there may not be kind of an institutional understanding
right
of the insights being provided on this album and on this particular song. So I love Black Messiah. It's a Dixieland song. It is, there's amazing magical moments in there. So the core concept is the singer of the song is the only Caucasian that lives in an all African-American environment. And one of his neighbors is talking to him about there's a black Messiah who's going to destroy the world. And he's not a big fan of that. and again, this comes back to some of the thematics of the overall, let's find ways to get along. The song actually starts off with, everybody's got a right to speak their mind, so don't sue me for saying mine. It gets into this kind of Dixieland stuff. It is incredibly fun. This is a really, really great song, but it is a song that you can never, ever, ever sing in front of anyone. But I think this is a masterpiece. I love this song quite a bit. Towards the end, he goes like, again, the structure of he's in this place where he's the only person who goes, they knock me down because they brown and I white, and it's just this kind of clever thing from there. But it's
Do you not sing that walking around, Kelly?
No, I don't. I want to, because this is, this is one catchy son of a bitch. It is amazing. It is an amazing song. And I love Black Messiah quite a bit. I'm constricted to not share it with anyone, but I love this song.
So I also greatly enjoyed this song. One of the first things that popped into my head was, am I allowed to talk about this song? How careful do I need to be? So there are bands, and the Kinks is a really good example because there's a few songs of theirs that I can think of that I wonder, had they come out, regardless of what the actual meaning or intentions of the song are, had this song come out now, we'll say, do you think in our current climate that people would give this song a chance and hear the underlying message of it? Why can't we all just get along kind of thing? Or do you think that people would just seize upon this song in a negative way?
Current climate, this song doesn't stand a chance.
So this was a topic of conversation. I'm not going to. So anybody who knows anything about me or my background can figure this out. I'm going to omit some names here. You can figure it out if you know anything about me, anything about the people that I work with. There's a band that we are associated with who recently released a box set, and the box set covers an extremely popular album of theirs and the minor releases that surrounded it. Like, it includes all the B-sides and a couple of EPs that preceded and followed that album. And it's supposedly a complete collection that remasters everything from that period. There is one huge glaring omission from that, which has been discussed a great deal online. I don't think there's nothing that I'm sure they want me to add to the conversation, and there's nothing that I would have to add to the conversation. If you've heard the song, if you know anything about me, you know what I'm talking about, and if you've heard the song, you know why it wasn't included. But it does make me think, and again, with our current climate, regardless of whatever anyone's intentions were making the song, you can't include that song. Like, you couldn't go in and remaster that song even as something that exists. So this is not remotely as extreme as an example of that, but as I was walking to work the one day and listening to this song, it did strike me as like, wow, this song would not go over well in the current climate. Like, I'm really enjoying this song, but a lot of people wouldn't, and they wouldn't really understand or give it a chance to understand what the song's about. They would just pick out bits and pieces of it and kind of seize upon it. And I think that there's a few Kinks songs that are like that. Another one's coming up.
Yep. Maybe next one.
Yeah. There's another one on this album, spoiler alert. And there's one or two others that I can think of off the top of my head. So because of this situation with the band that we are associated with, it does have me kind of thinking of this. Like, when you have songs that are older, kind of reintroducing something that's older, how does that work? Like, if the Kinks were to do a Misfits box set and put this out now, like, how would the reaction to this song and the following song be in today's climate? So I thought it was really interesting. From a musical standpoint, this might be my favorite song on the album. And I mean, like, strictly the band music. Like, it brings in sort of those Dixieland elements that Kelly mentioned. There's some straightforward sort of pop rock in the beginning, but it really seamlessly kind of weaves into the Dixieland stuff and then into like reggae elements and things like that. But the way that it just so seamlessly weaves in and out of them, it's not jarring at all. It doesn't spend too much time on one influence. It's just really, really impressive musically.
I enjoy this album quite a bit. This is to be the strongest song on the album. But to your point, current climate, I don't know how it goes over.
Right.
Because people fall off the boat early on it. Because, if you actually listen to it and you get towards the end where he talks about everybody needs to live with a little less hate, I mean, the core of what's going on here is actually a very positive message, but there's hooks on it that are going to kind of trigger people and do some things. But it is a remarkable song, highly singable. Don't sing it on your way to work.
Don't though. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, and I'm not talking about not if somebody wrote this song now, but what interests me is the reaction to existing. So this other band, this is a song that's over 20 years old, probably 25 years old, that they decided to omit as the only song that's missing from this box set from that period. And again, if you heard the song, you would 100% understand why, but this didn't sneak past anyone. When the track listing was released, this is clearly missing. People were wondering aloud before it, would they include it? So it made me think, if the Kinks were to do some big deluxe reissue of this, what would the reaction to this song be now for people who aren't familiar with it? Because the other thing, again, mentioning the other band, that song still exists. It's not like they removed it from the album or the EP that it was taken from. Like, you can get that EP still completely unexpunged everywhere. So you can go on the same, Spotify or Apple Music account or on iTunes or purchase a physical copy wherever and get that song. It's just omitted from this new release box set. So I wonder, when you hear stuff like this, and again, there's a positive message to Black Messiah, but would the band have hesitations about re-releasing this now? Would a record company have hesitations about it? Do you think, because I don't think that newer fans who aren't familiar would get far enough, like you said, they would be triggered before then, and probably wouldn't actually get to the message of the song.
Yeah, because at the core, it is about, as much of this is there's variety in people, there's variety in how people exist. Let's find ways to get along. And this hits that super hard. Fantastic song, but it has its challenges, as does the next song, which is Out of the Wardrobe, which is, has anybody here seen A Chick Called Dick? It's the story of Dick and but I gotta check my notes here on this piece here, Betty Lou. And it's, in my opinion, Lola Jr. So the Kinks have checked into this territory before around cross-dressing and all those types of things. And Out of the Wardrobe is Lola Jr. and Jr. in every sense of the way, in that it's not as good a song as Lola. It's an enjoyable song, pretty derivative. My least favorite song on the album, mostly because there's such a creative energy to Ray Davies that he does a lot of very, Black Messiah, a very good example. Out of the Wardrobe feels almost like a revisiting, and okay. There are parts of it that are enjoyable, but just kind of a weaker second effort to Lola, and given everything, especially coming off of, on my track listing, the American track listing, coming off of Black Messiah, a little lighter. Your thoughts?
So Lola is my favorite Kinks song. Big fan of that song. Lola itself would maybe be a troublesome song if released today, especially now. You have a lot more attention is being brought to transgender rights in a way that hasn't before. We've seen gay rights, and particularly in relation to gay marriage, being a topic of conversation for a long time, but specifically transgender rights is something that's more spoken about openly now. So Lola itself would probably be a troublesome song if released now. I don't think there's anything wrong with the song. I really like it. But when this song started, and again, the only song that I knew off of this album was Rock and Roll Fantasy, and even that I didn't initially recognize from the name. It was when I began listening to it. Almost right away, my initial thoughts on this were they're retreading sort of the same ground that they did with Lola. It's a different story, but it's kind of getting into the whole playing with gender roles and things like that, which I feel like not only have they done it, but they've done it so much better with Lola. I didn't dislike the song, but I just feel like this band has done this topic better. However, did bring me to my next question for you, Kelly.
Okay. Goody.
So for anyone who doesn't know, a while back, I was interviewed on a show, and Kelly Toole submitted a question about my thoughts on transgender prostitutes. Now,
so hashtag fake news, but go ahead.
no, this is totally real news, but I'm going to get to this happened. So I was asked to put together some like question cards for this because they were a little bit behind. So they were like, hey, could you help out and put together some question cards? So it was just for them to like hold and there would be something written on it. They ended up reading the literal things that I wrote, which was not the way it was explained to me. So I wrote some like ridiculous questions down to make the person who's interviewing me laugh and try to like mess them up. And instead what they did was deadpan read the questions off of the cards. So one of them, submitted by Kelly Toole, as he was credited to, was asking my thoughts on transgender prostitutes. So since we've already...
Hashtag fake.
Well, fake news that Kelly did not submit that question, but that happened.
Yes.
So my question, and for anyone who maybe missed that, if you're curious, my stance on whether it's, people cross-dressing, transgender people, whatever it is, if you're convincing, I'm convinced, and my dick is gullible. So my question to Kelly, since we've already broached this topic, sort of, through a fake question that I submitted, have you ever worn women's clothes before, Kelly?
Yes.
That is not the answer I was expecting. Tell me everything right now.
So young Kelly Toole in highly Mennonite Goshen, Indiana.
Let me just interject. Young Kelly Toole could be yesterday. He was younger yesterday.
No.
So keep going. I'm sorry.
Strange kind of, surrounded. So the only Roman Catholics in a highly Mennonite society. So this whole process of your dad rolling out on his riding lawnmower on a Sunday afternoon with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and a beer in the drink holder in the riding tractor did not go over well with the Mennonites, so for those of you not familiar with Mennonites, they're like the cool Amish, is what Mennonites are. So moved in on Friday the 13th, highly appropriate. But at some point also fairly strong Amish community. So we tried to pull a trick off one time that I was indeed a new Amish girl moving into the neighborhood, and one of our Mennonite friends had the appropriate Amish attire, and it just didn't work out. So there you go. How about you, Mike?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I believe we've actually discussed this on Squat Cobbler before.
You make a striking nun, I will say.
Well, the nun thing was interesting only because... So, for anyone who doesn't know, I did an episode of our mutual friend Dylan's show, Dylan Knows, that was about gender identity, or gender roles in entertainment. Not so much gender identity, gender roles in entertainment. So, it was myself and our friend Bronwyn, and we were told to dress as perceived opposite gender. And I decided beforehand, like, hey, I'm going to dress like a nun. Because not only is it the opposite gender, but maybe not how anybody would perceive me as being an overly wholesome and holy person.
Correct.
Going into it, though, because Dylan is known for having some technical issues with his show, but it is a video show, so I had to leave my camera on. So I thought, well, maybe if I make it black and white, we might not have this many issues. I don't know. So I told him in advance I was going to do this in black and white. So I got a nun's habit. And I got a real nun's habit because somehow the costume nun's habit costs more than the actual thing. Like you can get the real thing for about half the price of a nun's costume. So I got the real thing, got that done. And then I did like pink sparkly lip gloss. Now here's the problem with that. I knew in advance that this was going to be in black and white. No one could see that. Nobody. So that was just for me. So I did that show, and this sort of ties into Squat Cobbler. So I did that show, then I had to rush to New Jersey for an Alice Cooper concert, but I didn't take off the lip gloss.
Which works. You're good.
But I was no longer dressed like a nun. I took the nun attire off and just had jeans and a t-shirt on and pink sparkly lip gloss. So my ride dropped me a few blocks from the venue, and the venue was not in the greatest area. And as I was walking down the street, though, people were giving me strange looks and walking off to the side to avoid walking near me. And I couldn't figure out what was going on until I got to the venue and realized that I was still wearing pink sparkly lip gloss, which, again, no one could see in actual video, which was like, so.
Yeah, you probably need to get used to that.
So, but no, numerous times. I wear a lot of makeup, not like face makeup or anything. Like I wear nail polish all the time. My toenails are always painted. Anyone who follows me on Instagram has seen pictures of my feet at some point, and my toenails are always painted. I usually have some sort of nail polish on in my hands as well. You know, that's just a normal thing, and that's been since I was a kid. There are a lot of pictures of me in dresses. The dress pictures are weird, and we've covered this on, I think it was actually the very first Squat Cobbler we talked about cross-dressing Christian, because initially he was going to be Christina Menzies at one point, but decided he didn't have the ass to pull off a dress.
I'd agree.
So it came up, have I ever been in a dress? And yeah, but it was funny because I said it sort of as a joke on that episode, but this is 100% true, and if I can find the pictures, I'll get them to Kelly the post. So, like, the first pictures of me in a dress are, like, Halloween. So there's, like, a Halloween where I'm, like, 10 or 11 or something like that, and I have a dress on. Then, like, the following year I have a dress on, but there's, like, an evolution. So, like, the first time it's just like, oh, I threw some dress on, isn't it funny? The second year I have, like, high heels on and stockings on. By the third year that I'm some sort of female for Halloween, now I have makeup on. I have my nails done. There's, like, an evolution happening there. And then there's a picture of me at like maybe 14 or 15. This is post my first tour at that point. And it is summer in the picture. So it's nowhere around Halloween, so I can't blame it on that. I am sitting by a pool in like a lounge chair, and I have big black combat boots on and a blue sequins ball gown. Passed out on a chair by a pool. Clearly in summer. Yeah, clearly summer. And I remember that dress, and I owned that dress because I bought it for something. So that dress was used numerous times at shows and things like that. So yeah, so there's a lot of pictures of me in various stages of drag.
And on that note, we'll move to Trust Your Heart.
Smooth transition.
Smooth. So this is so everything on this album is a Ray Davies composition beyond this song. So when you get to a Dave Davies composition, which Trust Your Heart is, what you're going to get is more guitar because Dave is a guitarist and he's awesome. And so it's heavily featured in this song as well. It's a really, really strong song, and it builds starts a little bit softer and just kind of cranks up all the way through. I mean, you can typically pick out the Dave Davies songs on a Kinks album because it's slightly different. There's a bit of a music hall kind of cleverness to the Ray Davies stuff that Dave Davies goes a little more traditional rock. He's a fantastic guitarist. And he's a good songwriter. And Trust Your Heart is a very, very good song and a kind of interesting contrast to the rest of the album. So I like this song. Your thoughts?
I would just be echoing a lot of what you said, but yeah, more guitar driven. I like the way the energy picks up in this song. Not that I disliked anything on this album before, but these last two songs give a little bit more of, I guess, what I was expecting rather than what I got, although I really enjoyed what I did get. But this is more guitar driven, which is sort of what I expected. And it makes sense that, it was written by the guitar player.
And then we wrap the album up with Get Up, which we're back to Ray as his primary songwriter. I had mentioned a couple times we had seen the Who emerge, kind of Who-like sound emerge in a couple of these songs earlier. Definitely in full force here. From a bass and guitar standpoint, it is reminiscent of the Who, but still with the Kinks kind of flair to it as well. A fitting end to this album. It's the kind of song, if you're going to kind of wrap up this album, Get Up's a good song for that. And like I said, it's got some Who flavorings to it, but still 100% Kinks. And so I like this song quite a bit.
Again, not to just echo what Kelly's saying, but I really like this song. There's a lot more. There's some guitar elements in the beginning that are heavily distorted, which goes back to the Kinks being sort of forebearers of heavily distorted guitars. So it was cool to hear that. This is again a guitar-driven track, but Kelly mentioned The Who. My note on this is the Kinks playing The Who. I know that they're contemporaries of each other, so it's not really one borrowing from the other or anything like that. But this, to me, almost felt like the members of the Kinks and The Who were in the same room together, playing together, or at least directly influencing the playing, which was a good thing. I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't feel like it's derivative of The Who. It's just something that very clearly exists in that same universe in a really cool way.
Yeah, I mean, they're not copycats of each other, but this is definitely one where you get kind of that Who flavoring to it. So kind of a cool way to the album. So, like I said, this was one with Permanent Waves and Hay Fever. I was like, we'll see how Mike does on this one from there, because there's some kind of quirky Kinks kind of turns to it, but good thing. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I forgot to declare the last album is fun. I declared this one is fun. I don't have anything else to add for this show unless you do.
I don't think so. I would say so far, well, since you've made the declaration that Suspiria was your favorite of my recommendations to you, I would say that the Bonzos was probably my favorite recommendation of yours so far, because I would have never come across that on my own. And that was something that I really enjoyed. But I really enjoyed this album as well. And again, this is something that, to a lesser degree, but something I probably wouldn't have been exposed to these particular songs beyond Rock and Roll Fantasy, because again, while I'm a Kinks fan, it's more of a casual thing, and I really just know the hits. So I don't know that I would have delved far enough into their catalog to really give this album a fair listen. So I'm glad that I got an opportunity to do that.
May not be the last Kinks album that rolls your way, but we'll give it a break for a while. Good. Well, hey, we appreciate everybody listening, and we'll be back again as Mike and I figure out what the next round is. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast.